few seconds. Okay, welcome. Today we have a special guest, Liam Stone. He's on the New Zealand national team. He's also the NC2A national champion on 1 meter 2016. And you can tell from my background, by the lush land, he is from New Zealand. And today he's going to talk to us about visualization and how it can help your diving.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe.
Well, hold on a minute, Liam, while I pull you up.
Hello, I'm great. How you doing? Thanks for having me. So I'm in Auckland, New Zealand, back at home where I grew up, and yeah, we're just hanging out in lockdown. We're sort of slowly starting to come back to normality. So yeah. Yes, absolutely. I'm excited. Okay, great. Yeah. Well, obviously, as Joe said, talking about visualization. So it's something that's really helped me through my career. I've been sort of doing it for a very, very long time. So I've now gotten to a point where I think I'm quite good at it, and but it did take me a long time to get there.
Yes, absolutely.
I started quite young and was exposed to it, and just started slowly sort of visualizing myself, pictures of myself diving, and from there that progressed to watching a video of myself diving, and then being able to do it from my perspective, and so I use it now in training quite regularly before each dive, just in training and also in competition, especially leading up to a competition. I try and get some pictures of the pool that I'm going to be diving at if I haven't been there before, and try and familiarize myself with the area and boards and stuff, and try and visualize myself diving in that pool, sort of get familiar with the surroundings. It's also key when learning new dives as well. So that's a big part of how I have gone about learning new dives and new skills and stuff like that. So yeah, I use it a lot, and I've been using it a lot lately in lockdown because obviously, we haven't been able to train like most of you in the world, I'm assuming. So it's excellent for being able to still sort of, practice those movements. Your brain doesn't really know the difference between a skill that you're doing physically and a skill that you're just imagining yourself doing. So those same neurons are firing, the same muscle patterns are being trained. So it's something that I've been doing in lockdown, and hopefully we'll see the benefits when we get back into the pool soon.
Okay, well, Liam, that's great to hear. For those of you who keep texting, you can't hear me, I am here. Okay, and sound has been turned on. I appreciate it. So, Liam, when you rehearse a dive in your mind, you're telling me that your neuron pathways are forming the same pattern as if you were actually doing it.
Yeah, that's correct. So, I mean, I'm not a scientist and stuff, but from what I understand, the brain is imagining the skill that you're doing. Obviously, you're visualizing it, and in order to do that, it has to fire those same neuron patterns, even just to do it in your head. And so it's the same sort of neural pathways that are firing when you're actually doing it. So what's cool as well is you're able to, once you get to a point where you're quite comfortable visualizing, you're able to visualize, say, a more difficult skill that you actually can't do at this stage physically, or you can, maybe you're working on a dive, and it's not quite where you want it to be, but in your head you can do it for tens. So from that perspective, you can train it to an even higher level than physically.
Speaking about imagination, Megan Fox says hello. I don't think it's the same Megan Fox that I'm thinking of.
No, I believe that's one of the divers from Auckland Diving, one of the families here. Yeah. So Hayden.
Yeah. So where did you start this visualization?
Well, I suppose a big sort of turning point for me, where I sort of developed a lot more skill, was some time ago now in New Zealand here. We went on a course. It was called a PEV course, I believe. It was sort of teaching us about visualization, about performance, and how we can, combine the two, and use visualization to enhance our performance. And so we went on I think it was a 2 or 3 day course, and learned about how we can, visualize in training, visualize in competition, how to visualize, how to use it for even recovery, and many other things. So that was quite a big developmental point for me and a lot of other divers at the time who I did it with as well, including. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go on.
No, including who? Who else were you training with?
Including Lizzie Cui. So me and Lizzie grew up training together, and I went off to the States in 2015, and Lizzie went off to the States in 2016, and since then, we've still been competing together and done some synchro events together, and so yeah, we're still very close, and I believe we have Lizzie for that as well.
Yeah, we do have Lizzie up. Hi, Lizzie, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Hold on 1 minute. I'm going to let people know exactly who you are.
Routine, and it's just what I have to do.
The sacrifices she made history. Lizzie represented New Zealand in the 2016 Olympics, making her the first diver from her home country since 1992 and the second diver in LSU history to compete in the Games.
Can't really describe it. To make it to the Olympics one, and then to be the only one from New Zealand in 24 years, and then the second in history from LSU. I mean, it's just an honour, and it really puts into perspective that anything is really possible, and it just takes that dedication.
Now, Lizzie, you also went through the course?
Yes, yeah, I did. And it was a long course. I remember it very clearly, actually. And at the time, we were quite young. And I guess Liam bought into the process more than I did, and he applied it sooner than I did. But once I started, getting more into the diving and getting better, I started seeing Liam implement this in his competing routine, and I was like, what are you doing? And then sooner or later I started doing it as well, and I remembered stuff from that course that helped me in competition, and it's been a very vital part of my competing.
Well, since I have both of you on, if you were doing a hard dive, what type of visualization, what did it look like in your head?
Well, for me, it took me a long time to get to the point where I could actually visualize a dive. I know a lot of people struggle with this. I've talked with many people about, say I'm doing a dive and I get just before the water, and then I might do 10 somersaults or something, and that's something that I had to really work on. So how I began was just by maybe starting from my point of view, really trying to dial into different senses. So what am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I smelling, feeling even? And then just using that to allow me to sort of get into the, feel like I'm diving type thing. And then from there, do what I can from my perspective, and then what I can't, zoom out and imagine that I'm watching a video. And even actually watching, video as well has helped me. If I'm learning a new dive and I don't quite know how to visualize it myself, I might watch a video and then go and try and put myself in my head, and just kind of go back between the two.
Lizzie, what about you? When you're doing a hard dive, did you envision yourself successfully doing it, or how did it all work?
Yeah, so like Liam said, it took him a long time. It took me a long time. I think it's a skill that, like any other, needs to be worked on to perfect. So it did take me a little while, but I think I've gotten to the point where I'm most of the time visualizing a successful dive, and for me it's more of a fast motion, so it's kind of sped up in my head, and I need to make sure that the entry is vertical and ripped. And I also have a sense of confidence so I visualize the confident feeling of completing the dive, even how it feels after I've completed it. And that helps me a lot to implement that into competition, because you want to feel that same confidence on the board.
Well, speaking of confidence, Liam, I have a video of you learning a gainer 3.5 twister.
Okay. I remember this.
Okay, well, I'm going to play it now.
Taylor, out of the water.
So what we have here is a double bouncing gainer twister, one of Liam's first attempts. Now, Liam, you have seen this, so you know what happens.
Yeah.
How'd you manage that when you were done? Did you? I mean, it was a pretty good smack.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of just funny at the time, you know. We kind of tried to develop this culture where smacking was just something that people laughed at, and it made it easier to deal with, I guess. So for a while, I think everyone was quite scared, and we tried to sort of change that it was just something to just laugh off, brush off.
Well, let me show you the results later in the day of brushing this thing off. After we saw William fail the dive, Liam, he got back up and he's had a successful dive. I mean, that must have taken somewhat courage.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of divers can probably relate to that. You know, it's never going to happen where we're going to do a perfect dive every single time. You know, in training, you know, we might have spells where we can do 9 out of 10 or something like that. That's maybe ideal, but yeah, I think everyone can resonate to maybe dropping a dive in a competition, or something's not going well in training, and how do you sort of shift that? And I think visualization is one way that you can do it, because you're able to do a perfect rep in your head, and so now all of a sudden the last rep you did wasn't a fail; it was perfect. So that's one way. That's one way that I try and do that. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you both this question: how do you manage to visualize a dive you've never done?
I guess for me, I watch other people do it. I'm assuming that I'm trying to do a dive that has been done by somebody before. I've never tried to make up my own dive, but a new dive, I would look at somebody, you know, that I look up to, you know, Olympians that have perfected these dives, and I would watch those over and over again. And, you know, after watching it so many times, you're able to visualize yourself as that, and it just becomes like almost like you've done the dive yourself.
Yeah. I mean, same for me. You know, I was sort of touching on earlier that watching people do the dive, even talking with people who have done the dive before, and trying to sort of understand their process and what it feels like to them. And you know, I think the more people that you can talk about it with and get different perspectives from, the more different people you can watch, and just kind of bring it all together. And slowly you might be able to start to understand the feeling in your head, and you can, you know, potentially even relate it to other dives that you have done. So say it's a forward 3.5 that you're trying to learn, and you've done many with 2.5s. You know what a forward 2.5 feels like. You know what a forward somersault feels like. So maybe you can do a 2.5 plus 1 type thing, and just kind of break it down from that perspective.
Well, let me ask you both another question. When you see the dives, I mean, is it helpful to have like a video of your best dives, or other viewers, other divers doing spectacular dives? Is this something that might help you diving by just watching other people dive?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's key. I think, we often use TiVo or something of that nature, filming on iPad and watch it back. And that's to get feedback from ourselves, but we can also get feedback from watching other people, and, see how they do it and, compare it to how we do it, and try and look at, the differences and use that to improve yourself. So yeah, I think watching other people do dives to even a higher standard that you're currently at is very, very useful.
Okay, well, let's take a question from the audience here. Orly Gibson, who I believe you know, wants to know, have you transferred these skills to other areas of your life?
Yeah. Hey, Orly. Orly was both Lizzie and I's coach for quite a long time. For those of you others that are watching, yes, I have actually. I try and visualize even myself in a state. So your state is sort of your mood and stuff like that. So if maybe I'm nervous for I don't know, doing a interview with Joe. But something like that, maybe I can start to visualize it having gone successfully, so I can visualize the outcome, and I can start to imagine myself having done what it is I'm going to do, whether it be, I don't know, a driving test, and I can imagine myself, the feeling that I have after I finished and it went well and it was successful, and start to use. That's probably slightly different to sort of visualization in terms of how we're talking about it from diving, actually doing a dive. I suppose you could transfer that to other skills, but also I think in life, using, I like to call it just sort of imagination, and sort of imagining certain outcomes. Maybe it's an exam, and you can imagine it having gone really, really well, and how you're feeling about it. Maybe you can even imagine seeing the score that you want visually. Maybe imagine picking up the paper and imagine the conversations that you're having with your parents or your friends, telling them how well you did and stuff like that. So yeah, I have applied it in other areas of my life.
Yeah, that's good. Hi, Orly and Brad. Also, I miss you guys, but I think that one of the things that I do and I implement often is I started to meditate more. And with my meditation, especially at nighttime before I go to sleep, I try to visualize calmness and like what that looks like in my mind. So I could be in a river, or running through a field, or like just feeling extremely like relaxed, and it really helps me if I've had a hard day or hard practice to be calm before I go to sleep.
That's great. Now, a couple questions. You ever been around a diver that says something to the effect, when they see the scores, that the scores might be 7, 7, 7, 5, and the diver says, "Why did I get 5s?" Did that ever affect you, or is that positive, negative?
Yeah, I think I think as humans, we sort of look for the negative to try and sort of protect ourselves. So I think it's only natural to see the 5 and go, "Why did I get 5s?" But on second thought, oh, actually, that gets crossed off. The rest of them were 7s. That's probably, the judges are human as well. They make mistakes. So I think if you can just sort of dive into it slightly and just think about it a little bit more rationally, then you can maybe turn that initial negative, "Whoa, what?" to okay, yeah, it makes a bit more sense. And I think part of that comes with experience and maturity, and also like what Lizzie was just saying about meditation, and just having the ability to not sort of emotionally react to everything you see, and kind of just stepping back from it and just thinking about it for a second.
Yeah, and I think there's also the flip side to that. I mean, I do this all the time. Like if I'm getting 5s and I get 1 7, I tend to focus on that 7. I'm like, yeah, I got a 7. That's good. Great dive. Move on. Like, I think it's more beneficial to focus on the positives, the higher scores. And that's just something that I've implemented like throughout my whole diving career.
Well, Liam, diving in college at the SEC meet, you got 10s on your gainer 2.5 pike?
Yes, yep, that was my first one. Yep.
Now, do you visualize that before it happens, or do you wait till it's over? Do you do it between dives?
Yeah, so I mean, before each dive, I'm now preparing for that dive. So in that case, obviously a reverse to enough. And my process, I have quite a set sort of process that I go through, and that involves doing physical modeling as well as, whilst I'm doing that, I'm visualizing. I've heard it called sort of mentalizing before, so really, really feeling it, feeling the dive. I do it with my hands quite a lot. Sometimes people make fun of me for that. But I find that if I can imagine my hand as my body, I can sort of watch myself do the dive right in front of me and control it. So yeah, I'm visualizing that up until I get on the board, and then when I'm on the board, I'm trying to just let everything go. So sometimes I even imagine I have my chamois, and I kind of, all my thoughts and doubts or nerves or whatever, I put into my chamois, and then I just throw it away. And now, kind of like what Lizzie was saying earlier, just imagining calmness. So
Well,
yeah, that's what.
okay. Both of you have the opportunity to train with some of the best coaches in the world. You trained with Dave Parrington at University of Tennessee. You have Doug Schaefer at LSU. Have they helped you with the visualization? Do they act anything out, or is this something that you've brought into the program?
I would say that it's not something necessarily that's been implemented, but I've just constantly, like before I went to university, I started visualization, but as I competed more and through the competitive circuit, I implemented it more and more and got better at it, and I saw positive results from that. And I'm of course, I shared this with my teammates, and I know that my teammates also visualize as well. So yeah, I guess it's something that I've brought in, but also other athletes have brought in as well.
Liam?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Dave's big on visualizing and using. We at Tennessee, we were lucky to have access to sports psychology and stuff like that. So I really jumped all over that, and that was sort of another area or a time where I sort of really took my visualizing to another level. And so Dr. Joe Whitney is the sports psychologist there, and I would meet with him weekly, and he would take me through a visualization practice sort of thing, and we would also talk about my routine. So that's where I really sort of started to develop a routine in competition. And I mean, we would talk about, Dave and I would talk about it all the time, and how can we use it and implement it. And so yeah, I think it's something key and something talked about and something that Dave promotes.
Well, we have a question here from a mom whose son wants to know how to overcome a mental block. I'm guessing he's having trouble doing a dive. And I'm also guessing he's visualizing himself failing doing the dive.
Yeah, I mean, that is a tough one. And I've talked about mental blocks with other people who have had them in the past, and sometimes it can be quite individualized. But my first sort of piece of advice, I suppose, would be to start going. You're on the board and you're about to do the dive, and a lot of people just thinking about that get super anxious. So I guess the first thing would be starting to make peace with the dive. So you're on the board and you're starting to imagine that anxiety. So now start to imagine yourself calming down and being confident even. And then following that, I would probably start to imagine having done the dive. So forget the stuff in the middle for the moment, I guess, having done the dive. So I'm in the water, I feel great. Everyone's clapping, the conversations I'm having, the way I'm feeling, how it went, stuff like that. From there, maybe then, go back to what we were talking about before, starting to, watch some video, starting to imagine or visualize just a picture of yourself halfway through the dive. And then slowly just starting to bring it all together. And maybe you're doing the dive in slow motion, and then you can start to slowly speed that up. So I think, just at first sort of getting at peace with the dive a little bit. Imagining having done the dive, being confident with the dive, and then slowly imagining the actual dive and watching video. And yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I am the queen of mental blocks, especially when I was younger. Starting diving, learning dives really scared me. I would just stand on the diving board and not go. Liam knows about that. But as I grow older and I understood that it's not going to kill me. The dive is, 2 or 3 seconds of your life. And the feeling afterwards of completing that dive, I knew that I would feel so good about myself. So I started to focus on, I guess, visualizing the gratitude and the gratification after the dive was complete. So I knew that, I guess, it was more positive than negative, because if I went home that day or if I didn't complete that dive, I would be upset, knowing that I can do that dive because my coach believes in me.
Great. For young divers learning a new dive, sometimes they're a little cautious. Did you, again, visualizing a dive you've never done as a young diver, did you push yourself, or were you scared? Did you obviously have achieved a high level. You must have got through that area. I mean, your first reverse and a half, your first back and a half. Can you think back that far, how you got over that little hump?
Yeah. I can
Yeah.
definitely remember that. Those little hurdles, those were probably the hardest part about diving. And I think Liam definitely helped me a lot on that. Like, he encouraged me, and he was always like 1 step ahead or like 3 steps ahead of me, especially in terms of learning dives. So for him to tell me that it's going to be okay helped me a lot. And yeah, so that was a big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the beauty of sport as well. Whatever you do, there's going to be hurdles, there's going to be blocks, and there's going to be peaks and valleys, and that's life as well. So I guess just from that perspective, having to learn that at a young age is quite cool. It's going to set you up later in life, and it's going to happen. So I guess coming to terms with that, however you can, is maybe a good starting point. Often talking with older athletes if you can, or talking with your coach, talking with your parents, talking with whoever you're comfortable about what you're going through, be it good, be it bad. Just verbalizing a hurdle or an issue that you're having sometimes can halve it. So yeah, for me, I think just verbalizing it, coming at peace with it, and just realizing that it's just part of the process. And there's going to be tough times, and there's going to be good times, and you're gonna have successes when learning a dive, and you might have a fail or have a splat, whatever. But that's part of it, and it might hurt at the time, but it's also good feedback. Okay, well, that didn't work, so I'm not going to do it like that again. So if you can just think about it a little bit more rationally, I suppose.
Okay, that's great. We have a question here from Kurt Wilson, who I believe is going to be on next Thursday on Inward Actions. Have you ever lost a dive? And what did you do to create the confidence to get it back?
I think I don't think I know a diver who hasn't got lost in a dive like once at least in their time diving, especially if they've been diving for a long time. So it does happen. I guess it's very important to know that does happen. You're not weird. Like, it is a strange sport that we do. We spin around in midair and just hope for the best kind of thing. But I think what happens is, sometimes that happens, and it's important to be patient with yourself, talk to your coach, and express what's going on in your mind and how you feel, so that you can get feedback from what it looks like on the outside. Because a lot of the time what you feel in the air isn't what is being portrayed on the outside from your coach's point of view. So I guess just talking about it and being patient, keep trying, maybe take a break from that day, go back to it the next day, and sometimes it just works out.
Okay. Liam, have you ever just lost a dive you've been able to do, then all of a sudden you can't do it?
I don't think I have, not for an extended period of time anyway. I do remember one time, just this one random session, I was doing a front 1.5 and all of a sudden I couldn't do it. I was doing a double. And then the next day it was back again. It was fine. But I think, and I've seen it happen. I've seen people lose dives and I can't do this dive. And I think the first thing, I guess it was like I was just saying earlier about the mental block is just kind of letting go of that anxiety and trying to be at peace with it. And then, you could even just look at it from the point of view, okay, I'm just going to learn this dive completely again. So I've never done this dive, and go through the whole process all over again, through the skill chain and the visualizing techniques you can do. But yeah, losing a dive, I would probably first of all take a break from it and then come back to it, sort of feeling fresh about it and calm about it if you can. It is a tough one.
Yeah. Before we go any further, I just want to show a quick clip of video. It's you diving at the NC2As. That must have been an incredible high pressure. And when we're done, I want you to talk me through how you visualize and how you worked it through.
The 1 meter national championship was taken by Tennessee's very own Liam Stone. Stone scored a personal best of 453.7 points, making him the first national champion from Tennessee since 2004.
A little surreal, to be honest. I'm still kind of trying to process it all. But yeah, just joy, I guess. Going into it, I knew I needed to hit it, so I just kind of focused on what I needed to do. And then as soon as I went in the water, I thought it was enough, so I wanted to come up really quickly and see, and yeah, I was really excited.
So, Liam, you needed a lot of points on your last dive. Do you remember how many you needed?
In that particular meet, I don't remember how many I needed. No, but yeah, I guess it was a high pressure situation. But the thing I remember about that event in particular is I was so calm. I was so in the zone, and I had this sort of sense of this feeling that I was just, this dive was going to be good. I just knew it was going to be good. And I think that's the ultimate sort of state that we try and strive to be in. We talk about imagining the end result and feeling confident about it. But in that particular event, I sort of had no doubts at all. I truly believed that outcome, and obviously it happened.
Well, did you play this over and over in your mind prior to the Nationals, imagining what it would be like? Yeah,
I did. I guess not that particular situation. You can never sort of predict the specifics, but I was constantly, walking to practice or something. I would be imagining what the situation might look like where I'm in a final and I'm on my last dive and I need a big dive or something like that, and imagining it, having gone through the pool, imagining the cheers, imagining being on the podium, stuff like that. And so yeah, I guess sort of in an indirect way I was imagining that situation. But I think if you can just put yourself in sort of different situations, maybe you've just dropped a dive and all right, now I'm gonna now my next dive, or maybe just now to dive and I'm going to now my next dive type thing, or be it in that situation that I was in, needed a big last dive and did.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question, both of you. After you bomb a dive at a big meet, how do you handle it?
Well, I've in recent years I've kind of had my fair share of that. I failed a dive at the Commonwealth Games. I failed a dive at Puerto Rico Grand Prix. So it's happened to me quite a bit lately, and I think it's important to allow yourself to feel sad or frustrated just for a little bit. Just express those feelings. But for me, I've always been pretty good at getting over things quickly because I know that holding on to something like that for a prolonged period of time doesn't help you. It just hinders you. It makes you sad for no reason. And my teammates have always been very good at being supportive and, lightening the situation up. And I think I just know that that's not a representation of all the dives that I've done in my life. Like, how many times do you fail a dive? If, how many competitions have you done? Usually just, if you do fail one, it's probably one or two. It's not a regular occurrence. So that helps me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I second that, I guess. There's no point sort of denying that you're going to be upset about it, but at the same time, nothing you can do about it anymore. So I like to think of diving, you're doing 6 dives and it's 6 different boxes. And so whether you've done it for 10s or for 0s, the next dive is a completely separate dive, completely separate event almost. And then the same process again, 10s, 0s, 8s, whatever it is, next dive. And that's where I think bringing in a little bit of a routine, so something that just sort of resets you and you're starting again. For me, I like to jump in the pool, but it could be anything. And then from there you reset, and now you can start to we're talking about visualization. You can start to visualize what the next dive is going to look like. So be it a fail, or be it a success, restart.
That leads us to a question from Tim Fisher. He wants to know, do either of you have a process to get the right mindset prior to visualization? And have you other hurdles that you've had to do to get back in focus? And what you were talking about just now is like every diver has some ritual that puts them in the zone, whether it be rubbing your Sammy, throwing it down. That kind of is your reset. All divers have a little pattern, and when they get there, that is their reset. So back to Tim Fisher's question, do either of you have a process to get in the right mindset prior to visualization?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm just doing a visualization session sort of at home or something, I like to incorporate that sort of into almost like a meditation practice. So I might do a meditation, and then now I'm nice and sort of calm and in a good state of mind, then I'll go into a visualization process. But I think when I was learning, just starting off with a few breaths, calming yourself down, kind of feeling into your environment, and then imagining, okay, now I'm at the pool, I'm on the board, and how does the board feel on my feet? Can I smell the chlorine? Can I feel my skin is wet, or feel my togs, feel my chamois, whatever it is, and start to just think about all those different senses, and all of a sudden, you're not in this chair anymore. You're in the pool. You're in the diving pool. So for me, it just starts with sort of calming myself, and then starting to tap into those different senses. If I'm actually in competition and doing it, that's where, like you just said, my routine comes in quite key, and that just allows me to stay in the moment, as opposed to drifting off of whatever it might be.
Lizzie, do you have a ritual?
I would just say that I always see my coach before and after every dive, so that kind of completes the dive, next one, and then I make sure that I'm by myself when I'm going to do this visualization. Make sure that I'm free from distractions, so I'm not close to the competition that's going on. I'm usually like away in a little corner or something. And I run through my dives physically, like in you call it run-throughs or modeling, and then after that I will close my eyes and visualize the dive. And not just the dive, I'll visualize being confident, like I said earlier, visualize being calm and collected, and just kind of really preparing myself for the dive that I'm about to do.
Liam, do you sit by yourself or do you hang out in a group?
I think a bit of both. In recent years, I've both sat with my coach or with my teammates or something. I've also sat on my own. I think I prefer to maybe, for very, very long events, world champs, there's like 60 divers or something, even, NCAA's similar numbers, stuff like that. I think it's important to turn off in between each dive, and so a nice way to do that sometimes is just by sitting and talking with someone, depending on how you like to sort of go about that. Some people like to just put some music in, some people like to play a game on their phone, something like that. So I think I do a little bit of a combination of maybe I'm near people, but when it's time to sort of start getting ready, that's when I'll go off on my own and start sort of doing my thing and getting into my zone.
Brad wants to know, coming back from an injury can be very difficult and time-consuming process. How might you use visualization and imagining during the recovery period? Have you done that? Have you been down for a while?
Yeah, a little bit. So I think that's where the power of visualization can really come through. I was talking about at the start how brain doesn't super know the difference between physically practicing and just mentally practicing. So, you might be injured for 6 months or for 6 weeks or whatever it is. You might be stuck in a lockdown, and that's where you can keep practicing. You can do as much as you want in your head, and you're not going to fatigue from that either. And so, from that point of view, I think that's quite key. Just being able to continue practicing diving. But also, talking about the imagination type stuff with an injury, imagining feeling good. Say you've, I don't know, broken your foot or something. Imagining yourself running around it, and the injury is now in the past. A technique that I've also learnt is sort of building a little like hospital room type thing in your head, going into that room. And then maybe having some sort of light or something like that, and just imagining your foot being healed in that room. I suppose it doesn't have to be in a room, but just sort of imagining your foot going through that healing process and really paying lots of attention to whatever your injury is. I'm using foot as an example, but imagining that process, happening in your body. I think it's quite powerful as well.
Lizzie, have you had downtime with an injury of any sort?
I think I've been pretty lucky in my career. I haven't been down for like a prolonged period of time, but I've had, the odd injury here and there that keeps me from doing a full practice. And I think one thing that helps me is like I visualize, one thing as an example is I had a wrist injury. And one thing that helps me is imagining a cooling sensation, especially, inflammation. We kind of associate red with like pain and inflammation. So to counter that, I will imagine like a blue cooling, I guess like a glow around my wrist, which sounds strange, but I think it calms and helps the pain even, especially if you do it regularly. So just things like that to imagine the physical, the problem to diminish in your mind.
Okay. Well, this question's for you, Lizzie. When do you schedule visualization workout? How long does it last? How many times a week? Is it a routine, same practice? Is it the same for practice and meets?
So I would say since I've become more regular with my meditation, I try to do that every day, typically around bedtime. So I will tag it on to my meditation, like Liam said. I'll meditate, become calm, and then I'll have, I wouldn't say it's a long time because you can really visualize so many reps in your head in a very short time because you're not fatigued. So, this could last 20 minutes, it could last an hour. I typically don't sit there and visualize for an hour. You can if you want, but I think if the visualization is very focused and you're getting through what you want to get through, you don't need that long a time.
Okay, well, here's a question for both of you. Do you use this visualization when you model dives?
Yes, absolutely. I think I touched on it. I've heard it been described as mentalizing. So you're sort of embodying all your senses that you would be experiencing when actually diving. plus you're physically doing your modeling, your run through, whatever you call it, and then at the same time as you're doing that with your body, you are doing it in your head as well. That's what I do.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the most powerful tools is modeling and visualizing at the same time. It's like you have the physical and you have the mental. So I think, yeah, I agree with Liam. I think it's very powerful.
Okay, well, are there any other questions or points that either of you would like to bring up about the visualization and how it helps and how it works that might help young divers?
I guess I would say that it is a powerful tool and it will make your diving better. It will enhance your life. It will enhance your training. It will enhance how you feel in competition and the results from that competition. So I would encourage younger divers to definitely get on board with this and really try it for themselves, work on it. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to practice it, but I do think that it's a powerful tool. And if you're not practicing it, then you're only hurting your own diving.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think the biggest thing is just to be patient with yourself and realize that it's not something that a lot of people can just do. Like anything, you have to work on it, and sometimes that can be really frustrating. But just a little bit of time each day, a couple minutes even, or at practice before each dive or whatever, just slowly improving that ability, becoming more comfortable with it. I think I said earlier, you can start by watching video and then imagining yourself watch video, and imagining yourself do pictures, even drawing yourself diving is quite powerful as well. So, but yeah, just be patient with yourself and let it develop at its own pace.
Okay, well, we have another question from Eric. As part of your visualization process, do you run through mock meets during practice? Now, Liam, I know you told me a story about how you visualized the SECs that led to a victory for you. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of similar to the NCAA situation. I knew SECs was going to be, well, to answer the question quickly, yes, we run through mock meets all the time. And I'm trying to, in my head, make those mock meets as realistic as possible. So putting myself on or imagining, high pressure situations. So to come back to what you're saying, Joe, I would often be imagining, I knew the SECs was going to be in Tennessee that year, which is obviously where I'm training. And so imagining I'm in this, big final, and I need a big last dive, and then nailing that dive and winning the event. So it turned out that I was in that exact situation, needing 9.5, or something like that in the 1 meter event to win. And when that situation came, I felt so calm and so at peace that I wasn't nervous or anything. I felt like I'd been there before, and then obviously it worked out in my favor. So yeah, I think running through mock meets is key, but also giving those mock meets a bit of sort of reality, bit of purpose in your head, and that's where visualization can come in.
Okay, we have a question for both of you here from Victor. Victor wants to know, during competitions, do you pay attention to your score and your ranking or on the scoreboard, or do you try to avoid looking at it?
I definitely think that for me, when I was younger, looking at the scores, paying attention to that stuff really didn't help me. I got in my head, you put too much pressure on yourself. It's not worth it, because diving it's patience. You got to wait for every single dive to be completed for your final score. So even if you have a great first dive, that's not guaranteed that you're going to have a great competition. So I think looking and focusing on each dive at a time is not beneficial. Even now, I don't focus on it too much, because I've seen people who, have a bad dive but make a huge comeback. So I think the best thing is to focus on each dive individually. If you look at your score, if you pay attention to that, that's okay. But I think just not focusing too much on that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think I think it's different for everyone. I know some, top divers in the world that love to pay attention to the scores. They have to. They need to know where they're at. They need to know, what the next dive has to look like, type thing. And that's cool. And if that works for you, then brilliant. For me, a little bit more like Lizzie. I try and just do my own thing, not really pay attention to the scores, especially not really pay attention to where I'm placed and stuff like that. Like I said, some people like to. I think the thing with diving, unique to some other sports, is that you cannot control what people are doing in a football game or something like that. You have a bit of an influence on what happens from the other team or the other player. But in diving, it is so individualized that you might be having a really good competition for you, but everyone else is as well. And so you might be a bit down the field, but you're still doing really well. So I think, just focusing on you, what you can control the controllables, that works for me. So, yeah.
Okay, well, we have another good question from one of your former coaches, and they want to know what are you doing now that everybody's out of the water? Are you visualizing your dives? Are you breaking it up into small chunks? Are you combining it with the modeling, which I think we talked about? I mean, no one's training. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. For me, I've kind of used this time a little bit to step away and just relax a little bit, and also start to explore training and a bit of cross training. So just doing some different stuff just for fun, and I think it's really served me really well. In terms of visualizing, what I've been doing is a consistent sort of meditation practice. It's important to remain calm and have that ability to stay in the moment, and then from there just let that transition into some visualization. Also just watching some video, be it of yourself, be it of other people, and then finally some modeling. I think that's quite valuable as well, and using visualizing whilst modeling as well, like we were talking about. So that's some of the stuff I've been doing.
I've been just trying to stay active, but I think definitely focusing on my mental health, because it was such an abrupt change in lifestyle for everyone. We were so on the go training, mostly twice a day. I had World Series to look forward to, and then everything was and so did Liam. He actually came to America to train with me and then had to turn around and go home. So it was a big shock, and I think it can really have an impact on your mental health. So I've been focusing on being consistent with that meditation, stretching every day. Like I like to do kind of like a meditative yoga movement type stretch, which like really calms me down. And then again, of course, the modeling, the visualization, trying to do that most days.
Well, that leads into the next question here. How did it affect you? I mean, you're both trying for Tokyo, right? Now Tokyo is postponed. I mean, there's a dream that everybody has, and now that dream's been moved back.
Yeah, it's a funny one. We were so on track. Like Lizzie just said, I was actually in America. I left New Zealand on the Tuesday. I was supposed to be gone for like 3 weeks, and I was back by the weekend. So that was quite funny. But personally, I was feeling really good for the trials. Lizzie's qualified for the event already, so that's a whole different perspective for her. But for me, I still had to qualify, so I was feeling good about the trials and quite excited. So I was a little bit disappointed at first, but at the same time, I'm just viewing it as, if I look at the last sort of year, 2 years, and how I've progressed, it's just another 12 months to continue that progression, and I'll be at an even better level come this time next year when we're building up to the games.
Yeah, like Liam said, I've already qualified, so it is a little bit different. I think that if I was still trying to qualify, it would kind of be more pressure, but again, like it's kind of switched everything around for everyone. So I started, to be negative about it at first. I was like, oh, a whole nother year, like that's so much time. Like, what do I do in between it? I'm starting my grad school. Like, how am I going to fit it in? But then I started to think about the positives, and I think that taking this time to like relax and just have time and to think about why you started diving in the first place has been really positive for me. So I think next year when it comes around to diving again, I think most people will be in a better headspace.
Yeah, the other nice thing is it's the same for everyone, so as unfortunate as it is, everyone's in the same boat, so that's nice to know for me at this end.
Well, you both have youth on your side. Not everybody who's been postponed has that advantage.
Yeah.
Okay. So before we wrap it up, I just want to tell a short story to the audience out there. Many years ago, my club program had a noted sports psychologist, Dr. Alan Goldberg, come out. He made a series of audio tapes once for divers. And what he did was, after he calmed all the divers down, he asked them to put their arms out to the side and close their eyes. He turns out the lights and he says, visualize in your right arm a helium balloon. Left arm, bucket of water. The water's heavy, the balloon is light. This went on for about 40 seconds. Then he asked everybody not to move and open their eyes, and he turned on the lights. And half the kids were like this. The visualization, just imagining something, does affect the body, and it's great to be able to visualize a positive dive for the divers. And divers with the mental blocks, they visualize themselves going. That's how you get over it, because they're doing mental visualization of them not doing it, and then they get on the board and they don't do it, and they reinforce it. Okay, so we're going to take a couple more questions here. Somebody named Dave Parrington says, fantastic stuff from both of you. Dave's one of the best coaches in the world. He has an accent, much like yours a little bit. What was it like diving with Dave?
Yeah, hey Dave. Dave, Dave is a great coach. I mean, obviously I was there for 4 years, and I'm actually going back to do grad school here. So I'm looking forward to working with Dave again, and it was awesome. I mean, Dave's very passionate about diving and about his athletes, and not only as divers but as people as well. And I think that's very important to develop a holistic athlete. Diving, as much as we might like to think of it, it's not going to last forever, and so I think, developing all areas of your life is only going to improve you as a diver, and Dave's a big advocate for that, so yeah.
Well, I would be remorse if I didn't mention that Lizzie dives with Doug Schaefer. He was doing inward 2.5 pikes on 1 meter before it was trending. What's it like diving down there, besides hot?
Yeah. Doug doesn't let me forget it either. Definitely tells me his inward 2.5 pike is a lot better than mine is. So,
it was really good, but he had short legs.
I have short legs too. But no, Doug is awesome. He's had a huge impact on my diving career, and we get along really well. He has a light, I don't know what the word is, a light personality to him. He's always making jokes, and I definitely thrive under that environment. I love to have fun while I'm diving. So me and him, we've definitely come a long way, and he's, improved my diving so much, and I'm very thankful for him.
Well, both of you are from New Zealand. You came to the States. What was that process like? I mean, did you just pick up a magazine and see an ad for these schools, or how did the coaches reach out?
Yeah, well, we, as you said, we were both training together here in New Zealand, and our coach at the time was Aurelie, who we talked about earlier, and her husband Brad, who had sort of coached in the NCAA system in the past. So they both helped us with different prospective schools to look at and how to go about it, and sort of helped us along that process quite a lot. So we have a lot to thank them for helping us through that process. And then actually moving, I suppose, looking back on it now, it was quite a change, but at the time it was just something, this new journey, this new experience, something very exciting, and I just kind of went all in.
Yeah. Lizzie, what was it like for you?
Well, for me, I've trained with Liam my whole life, really, and we were separated when he went to college, and I was sad without him. So I decided to follow him, and I actually took a trip to Tennessee and LSU, which it was a very, very, very hard decision between them both. Like, I love the coaches, I love the teams. I can't even really explain why I chose LSU. I just had a feeling about it, and I ran with it, and I'm glad that I did, because Liam and I have different experiences now, and we're able to share those with each other and with people in New Zealand that maybe want to go to the States for college. So I think it was the best thing that I've ever done, both for diving and for life experience and opportunities. It is really the chance of a lifetime.
Well, we got a late question, but it was pretty good, from Zach. He wants to know, do you only visualize perfect takeoffs, or do you run through multiple scenarios, something like a bad hurdle? Do you picture yourself recovering from it?
I suppose I don't specifically imagine or visualize bad hurdles, but what I do is, in practice and training, always, or as much as possible, go off a non-ideal hurdle. I don't. Dave often talks about, we've done a lot of work on this as well. There is no such thing as a perfect hurdle, and the more you try to get a perfect hurdle, the less it's going to happen. And so I think, for me anyway, that's probably more of a physical thing, just going from every hurdle. In terms of visualizing, I guess you could visualize recovering from a bad takeoff. That probably would be quite beneficial. I often just imagine more the aerial side and the entry side, and the takeoff just kind of looks after itself. That's, I don't know. Do you, Lizzie, do anything like that?
I don't purposely visualize bad things, but sometimes my head sabotages me, and I'll be doing a perfect dive, and then right on the entry, just smack on my face, and I'm just like, what happened? So for me, I rewind it slowly. So I'll rewind that and then press play and pretty much adjust my body to perform the dive well instead of doing that. So sometimes it happens by accident. It happens by accident kind of often, actually. I guess I correct myself in my head.
Yeah, I do the same thing, and I guess that's what I was alluding to earlier when I said just be patient, because it's taken me so long to be able to just... Honestly, I find visualizing a frontliner one of the hardest things, because going from air to water is very difficult to imagine. So if you're able to do that, adding 3.5 somersaults on it is the easy part. Just be patient and use those techniques that Lizzie was just saying.
Well, I'd like to thank both of you. This has been great. A lot of divers are going to appreciate all the information they got. But positive visualization does lead to positive diving. I want to thank you both. Okay? And now, let me see if I can get to the right screen. Well, let me see here. Okay, thank you very much. Now, my apologies for not having the sound working at the start. What I was saying is how great these guests are. Liam's won the NC2As. Lizzie's been a finalist. They've both been on the world scene for quite a while. On Thursday, we have workout with Tess. If your divers can keep up with her for 35 minutes, they're going to be pretty good. Next week, we have world champion cliff diver David Coltieri. And then later in the week, we're going to have two of the best age group coaches in the country talk about inward actions, Kurt Wilson and Buck Smith. So we look forward to seeing you folks out there later. And remember, these are live. You can write in your questions and your comments, and we definitely appreciate it. Best of luck with your diving, and may your pools open up soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Joe.